Bonjour.
Bonjour et bienvenue au cadre de l'innovation entrepreneuriale. Pouvez-vous confirmer votre lettre d'équipe?
G.
Est-ce que vous préférez la lecture des règlements en français ou en anglais?
En anglais.
For this event, you will have 10 minutes to present your case to the judges. If your presentation is less than 5 minutes long, a penalty of 1 point will be deducted for every 30 seconds. If after 10 minutes you have not completed your presentation, you will be stopped in order to conclude the presentation. There will be no question period for this round of presentation. During the presentation, I will indicate the remaining time when 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds remain using a card, and the last 10 seconds using my fingers. I remind you that under no circumstances can you mention the origin of your university under penalty of being penalized. I will now ask the judges to introduce themselves, after which you can begin your presentation.
Hi, I'm Christelle Roxton and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Syntec.
Hi, I'm Charles Vaudeville, Sales Director for La Breweries.
I'm Joyce McLean from Agorize and I'm in charge of open innovation.
Benoît Giroussens, Stratégie Director for React.
Christian Roche, Vice President of Product and Innovation for First Home Financial.
Alright, so thank you so much for being here and for being willing to share our ideas with us. So today we will show you how to react with React. So just a little bit about us. We're from Moody Consulting Group and my name is Paulina. I'm here with Yuking and Ali. And we know currently that retail is not dying, it is changing. And what we do at Moody Consulting is exactly help our clients navigate through that change through a data-driven approach. So on today's agenda, we'll talk a little bit about how we arrived to a specific business model for React, how much funding we will ask to implement that business model, and how exactly we'll go about implementing it.
All right, so the first question is, why retail in general? Now, looking online, there's been a growing number of e-commerce stores, but more importantly, React is still a Montreal-based startup, right? And as a result, Montreal isn't only at the forefront of technology, specifically AI, but also at the point where there is a wave of retail innovation happening here in the city through a large ecosystem that's developing with both private sector and public sector partnerships. And this is reflected by the growth in the industry of, for example, a growth into omnichannel trends. All right, so now there's been an emphasis from both companies and customers on the omnichannel experience, and this actually has been pretty much pioneered here in Montreal. Think of, for example, Frank and Oak, using a mix of both AI to deliver subscription clothing boxes to customers, and it's based right here in Montreal. After all, companies that go beyond simply a retail experience are creating a greater year-over-year retention alongside changing customers' expectations. Retail is no longer a chore that you have to go and buy clothes because, oh my God, I need something clean, I need something new to wear, but more, it's an enjoyable experience where not only can you go buy clothes, you can go grab a coffee, get a haircut, all in the same location. And this is something that's being done not only by startups, for example, your Frank and Oaks, your Warby Parkers of the world, but something that's being reflected by large existing companies. Think of Lululemon, Starbucks' new Reserve cafes, or even Amazon's grocery stores in Seattle. It's a seamless, not even a chore, but a seamless experience that we're going to create with retail using React's technology.
So we know that companies desperately want and need to enhance the in-store experience to remain competitive. Now, what kind of companies are we talking about? There's actually two of them. So the first one, we're trying to go click to brick. So these are online-only startups such as Warby Parker, Midjourney, companies that already have all this consumer data that want to finally launch their first pop-up store or retail store. And then there's existing giants who want to modernize their retail experience and not have the same fate as Sears. Now, What's even better is that we know that there's demand for this now, because it's not a question of only modernizing the experience, but also going about it in a sustainable fashion. It's one question to adapt your store once, but it's another question of making it so that your store is constantly optimized year over year and not just using something once and call it a day. Now, what's even better is that currently, even though there's a lot of biometric devices that measure all of these human, data points, no one is actually using it in a retail context. So what we're trying to say here is there's no direct competitors, and you would be first to market if you do enter this space, which Aline will try to explain a little bit better.
All right, so the goal of our business model is to help find and partner with these companies, both e-commerce ones and existing large enterprises, through a partnership with the Bensadoun School of Retail Management here in Montreal. Now, our business model, in more detail, is to take advantage of the competitive advantage that React has. React, yes, you create software. However, React is a software company at heart. Its algorithms, its analysis are what sets it apart from any other company that's simply creating a hardware device. Now, the best way to take advantage of React is to think of it more so as a software as a service company. And we plan on doing so through the three-step React with React model. Now, our first step would be a partnership with the Bensadoun School of Retail Management. Now, just to add a bit of context, this is currently a partnership that's being worked on with the McGill University and Aldo alongside the Retail Council of Canada. So there's a lot of support within the existing Canadian market, and more specifically and more importantly to React, one of the cornerstones of the school isn't simply academic research and theory, but rather experiential practice through a retail lab, which is located at the corner of Sherbrooke and Peel, one of the busiest intersections in Montreal. And the purposes of this retail lab is simply to collect data on consumer behaviors, consumer trends. However, there's an area they lack. They don't have the technology, they don't have the analysis to truly connect biometrics with consumer emotions, and that's where React can step in. And then on top of this, a more important aspect is through the Bensadoun Labs partnerships with large companies such as Aldo, alongside startups both within Montreal and within Canada as a whole, it saves React the need to go and individually reach out to hundreds of startups, hundreds of companies, and try and see what stage of the process they're at. Instead, you're dealing with companies who have shown a demonstrated willingness to invest in retail technology and upending the retail experience. Otherwise, they wouldn't be partnering with the Bensadoun School, and they wouldn't be looking forward to working with this pop-up store. Now, our second aspect from this retail lab is to put the sensors in the retail lab itself and test it. Now, the majority of the companies that would be working with this retail lab are e-commerce companies that are looking to make that specific jump from click to brick. Now, one thing that sets these e-commerce startups apart is that they're data-driven, lean startups, and it's something that's really hard to replicate in the real world. After all, if you're looking at consumer interest on your website, you can instantaneously see where people are looking, what part of their website they're looking, just have an idea of the reviews, the sentiment of your product. But in the physical world, you don't get that instant data that startups are relying on. And with React's technology, we're able to bridge that gap by working with the Bensadoun School and finding these retail partnerships. Now, the other aspect of this business model that can really benefit React is the collaboration with larger existing companies. I want to bring up the example of Aldo again. After all, they're the namesake of the school. And as we know, Aldo's a large company. It takes a while to get anything implemented in them. So this would be more so in the later 5 or 6 months of this plan, would be working with Aldo to find a way to expand into their existing retail stores. For example, it could be simply trialing React technology in their Eaton Center location and then slowly rolling it out to different locations throughout both Quebec and then Canada over a long period of time. And that's the advantage of working with a school, is that these companies are willing to experiment and they are willing to work with both the school itself and specifically React to improve their retail experience through technology.
So to summarize, it's really a question of going to a place that already is going to aggregate all your customers for you and will be able to complement your data with more, data-driven and something that's able to learn by itself how consumers actually act in a real-world environment.
So now let's look at how the business model translates on the timeline. So in a nutshell, for the partnership with the Bensadoun School of Retail Management, we're going to engage in negotiations in the short term for around 2 months. And then for the ongoing process is going to be more of an exchange of insights and potential deals with other companies. For the second prong, which is implementing technology in the lab is actually in construction for this month, but afterwards we're going to start working with our first and second pop-up client. And then finally, the rollout with the enterprise clients outside of the lab context So at the beginning, we're going to spend a bit more time on client acquisition and negotiations during that time of testing, as well as the construction of the lab. But finally, afterwards, at month 5 and ongoing as well, we're going to roll out for the big companies. So this leads us to the funding request of $10,000, and this will mainly go into the initial cost of business development and legal issues as well, because we feel that our technology is our expertise and is already developed and built, so we only want to focus on that area specifically.
So how much revenue can you actually gain from this? So initially, we're going to try to develop this partnership, but afterwards, we still know that this is a new technology and companies aren't as convinced. So what we would do is perhaps charge bigger enterprise clients $50,000 a year for the data analysis itself, which is really what we're selling, the actual insights from the behavior. And year 2 onwards, we would charge $100,000 on a yearly basis in order to be continue working with these companies. Now, these numbers may seem a little bit big, but there are companies like Crimson Hexagon who also analyze consumer behavior and data through, for example, social media, that do charge these prices for this type of service. So it's just a question of using that as a comparable. And we believe that even if you're only able to get one enterprise client and one smaller e-com, you'll be able to have a lifetime value of those customers of roughly $600,000 for those 5 years. So your revenue potential is really based on your effort and how much you actually want to put into this.
So to sum it up, the first thing is that we want to have a partnership with the Best at Doing School of Retail Management, because we feel that in that way we're going to be able to acquire the clients that we need in order to develop the product. As well, we're going to focus on 2 types of customers, so the small e-commerce startups as well as the enterprise giants that want to optimize their store layout. And then finally, with only 2 customers conservatively, we're going to achieve a lifetime value of $585,000. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Perfect.